Horrible, dirty sinners! What do we do about them? Welcome back and good evening, ladies, gents and Pikachus. I was going to do the rest of the Matthew 24 reading, but I feel like we have more pressing matters in hand. Many of us are in two minds. How do we deal with sinners? Do we forgive and forget and try to encourage and teach the sinners? Or do we mark and avoid and save ourselves the bother of having to deal with these disgusting, dirty creatures? The Bible has the answers for us. So we're going to go through that. Rather than go through the verses, we'll do that in the rest of the Matthew 24 reading. I have kindly made a summary, and we're going to discuss this summary in a kind of a practical format, so that you and I can learn how to recognise the different kinds of sins on people, because you can generally spot these things fairly easily when you know what to look for. So we're going to be learning what to look for, how to spot these things, and then we're going to be talking about how to avoid falling into the temptation sin trap and becoming those things ourselves. So it's more about how to improve ourselves and our conduct, and less about how to condemn and treat sinners. We'll do that in a future episode. So let's get started. Like I say, if you have a Bible to hand, this is where you're going to find all the reference that I'm going to use, the King James Bible. If you don't have a King James, any one will do, but this is my preferred one. That's where I took these notes from. So, first of all, a quick rundown on how we know about sins. There are a big list of sins in the Bible. There's about between 30 and 40 defined sins. There are 7 deadly Gregorian sins, which everybody knows. Then there are 6 minor sort of split off sins of those, which is where, if you've ever heard the phrase all at 6s and 7s, that's where that comes from. All at 6s and 7s means all at sin. You know, you're in a situation where every opportunity is offering you a path to sin. 7s being the 7 deadly sins, 6 being the minor descriptions of sins, all at 6s and 7s. So that's what we're going to be focusing on, the 7 Gregorian sins, or the 7 deadly sins, which lead us into all the other ones. These are the ones we will be able to recognise when we look at people, when we look at their life, and then we will know from that whether we're going to get a good performance from this person or whether they are going to expect us to do something for them. So, the order they go in is pride, envy, lust, greed, gluttony, sloth, and wrath. But we're going to do them in a different order, just because it's easier to understand, because the early ones will lead into the later ones. So we're going to begin with greed. Greed is a very obvious sin to spot on people, which is why we're going to do it first. And the reason is, greed has the biggest, most pronounced physical effect on the person who suffers from it, right? So, I've got a list of bullet points here we're going to go through, and the first one for greed is failing health. Usually obese and sickly, worn facial features, and a weary disposition. So, before anyone says, "You're fattest," it's like, no, you're the fattest. I'm skinny. The reason I put this is not to pick on fat people. Let's get that out of the way first, because fat people are going to feel like I'm targeting them. Not all fat people are sinners or greedy, but all greedy people are fat and sinful, right? Because greed is the sin. So that's how we know. Greed, if you look at someone and they have these failed health, obesity, sickly, worn features, you know, if they look like a greedy person and their life reflects that, you can get an inkling that this is going to be a greedy person. But you cannot just base it solely on that, right? So I've got more bullet points to go through. Greedy people are possessive, right? Greedy people are greedy with people as well as objects, as they are with food, alcohol, and smoking, drugs, whatever else it is that they like. So you can tell if someone is going to be a possessive person when you meet them, if they look like a greedy person, right? So that's the first thing. If you spot that on them, be aware. It's probably going to be a time you want to look for the possessiveness in them. And possessive people are exploitative, selfish, and often very deceitful, you know, because they want to cover up the greed. So in order to cover up the greed, they will make out they're actually the opposite. For instance, when I was young, I knew someone who I shared a house with. I will not name names. And this person was extremely greedy And we knew this because every piece of not nailed down food would disappear from the fridge. If you left out a Mars bar or, half a plate of chips, it would disappear if this person was in the house. So this caused many arguments. In a student house, we didn't have a lot of money, food was a resource, and we didn't want our food getting eaten. But it was always the same person. And the rest of us were quite athletic looking, but there was one person who was a big fat big obese hef. And this person would constantly say, I'm on a diet, I'm going for a jog, I don't want a sweet thanks, I don't eat sweets, no, don't offer me Coke, I don't like Coke, I only drink water. They'd go through the motions, right, of convincing you that they were actually not selfish and they were totally, trying the hardest they could to not be greedy, so that you could not argue with them, you could not condemn them with it. If you ever mentioned go for a jog or stop eating or did you eat my plate of chips or my Mars bar, you'd get a big row. And this is how we know this is a person who is greedy, because they are deceitful about their greed, i.e. they're pretending, they're putting on this pretense that they never eat any food and they're constantly going for jogs and they're doing everything they can to not be that person, but it's false. And they are selfish, because if you leave any food out and you turn your back, it's gone immediately. And then they will deny it, and they will shout at you for making the accusation, despite the fact that it's obvious. You will know if you live with someone like this. After a while, because what happens is you hear like a skittering sound behind you. It's like a horror movie. Something runs past behind you and you don't know what happens. So you spin around and suddenly your plate of chips is empty. Then you're looking around to see who the culprit was, and you hear another creeping sound behind you and you don't know who was there. Then in comes the greedy person. Oh hi, I've just got back, and claims that they just got in that second. Right, so food disappears, skittering sounds, nobody was there, they immediately appear, and the first thing they do is proclaim, I've just got back from a jog. And you think, well, this keeps happening and you always appear, so you're being deceitful here. So, failed health, obese, sickly, weary looking, possessive, you can't eat their food. If you eat their food, oh, woe betide you. Apocalypse now if you eat their food, or if their food goes missing. But they will eat your food, and they will steal things off you, because once you start with food, that creeps into another behaviour set of I can take anything when I'm not caught. And that leads into no evidence, no crime, a lawless sort of personality, and that leads into being exploitative of other people and selfish, right? So far for greed, failing health, diabetes, obesity, bad dentistry, smelly, not exercising enough, lying, treating people as objects, like their stuff and their possessions and their space doesn't matter. They're only there to make me look good, or to make me able to deny the things that I do if I'm a greedy person. Possessive with people and also their objects, stealing food, cans of Coke, or anything that gets left lying around. And exploiting people's good nature by having a fake tantrum whenever they are accused. So you may recognise some of these already. We're only on point 2. We got a few more points to go for greed. And the reason why it's important that you know these is because greedy people will incite you to sin. And this is the problem with all of these 7 deadly Gregorian sins, is when these sins are enacted upon you, which they will be by these people, sinful people will provoke you to reactions of sin. Right? So the first thing to do is observe, spot it on them using these, and make a mental note. This is a person who is going to encourage me to sin. Before you've decided how you're going to treat them, what you're going to say, just make that mental note to protect yourself. This is a person who's going to provoke me out of my righteous nature into a sinful action. Just keep that in mind. So, greed, point number 3. Greedy people are miserable, never happy, always bitter and jealous, especially of people who are thin and pretty. Don't have the problems they have with a possessive nature and the misery. Cheerful, skinny people are their enemy. So again, I'm not having a go at fat people, it's just a fact, this is just what happens. So when a person is greedy and the points that we've gone through is affecting them, generally this will make them miserable. Because nobody wants to live a lie. Nobody wants to have to appear and say, hi, I just got home, definitely didn't eat your chips. Oh, I just went for a jog. You know, I've been jogging for 2 hours despite being 50 stone. Nobody wants to be in that scenario. So it is miserable, right? And we know the wages of sin is death, and death comes in degrees. So that is a physical death, and then a dignity and a reputation death caused by greed. So it makes a person miserable. And when a person is constantly miserable, never happy, it makes them bitter, makes them resentful and jealous. So that means when they see you enjoying yourself, having a nice piece of cake or a glass of Coke or something and not having to worry about it, and not having to go for 2-hour fake jogs afterward, they will feel resentful. And that feeds into their state of miserableness. So then they will exploit you with the false accusations and the false rage so that you don't accuse them. And the end result of it is they can never have a close relationship with someone who is not like them. That's a fact. So what you'll find is greedy people have failing health, not good relationships, very shallow on the surface relationships. They try to come across overly cheerful, you know, bubbly. Sometimes is what they say. Oh yeah, we're just bubbly, because they're constantly making jokes at people's expenses and finding everything hilariously funny, which is deceitful. They're not actually cheerful and finding everything funny. They're doing this to cover up the fact that they are miserable. And the reason they're miserable is because they're jealous. Because you have something they don't. Good health, you know, normal hygiene or food habits, less sicknesses or joint pains or whatever, and you're not constantly lying to cover up your exploitation of others. You know what I should have done really is, no I shouldn't, I was going to say what I should have done is supplied all the Bible verses which led me to these conclusions, but if I'd have done that, this video would literally be 8 hours long. So maybe in future if you want I will do that. So anyway, point number 4 for greed. Disaffected. Focused on what they lack, not on gratitude for what they have. So greedy people are disaffected. They blame the world for the things that they lack. They blame you for having things that they don't. It's never their fault. They can never look inward. And the reason they can never look inward is because if they look inward, it will make them miserable. They're already miserable. You know, it will make them miserable, and what do people who are greedy do when they get miserable? They stuff their face with more of what they shouldn't be having, right? So whether that be drugs, alcohol, smoking, food, stealing, obsessively washing their hands, whatever it is that they're doing when they're miserable, when they look inward and blame themselves, they are there is a fear that will become more miserable, and they will go and do more of the thing, and their problems will worsen, and it's down, 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 you know, slippery slope. So that's why they focus on what they lack and blame it on others, rather than focusing on what they have and being grateful for what they have and looking inward. Right? So that's how they become spiteful, bitter, jealous, and disaffected. Greedy people have a poor work ethic. Generally. Not always, but most of the time they do. What that means is if you work with someone who's greedy, they will try to get the most amount of work out of you as their colleague while giving you the least amount of work back. And this, if you've ever been a supervisor or a manager, like I have managed a phone shop and I had a greedy person working for me, this person would constantly try to take all the good shifts, all the double time, overtime, triple time weekends where you got paid more, all the peak times when you're going to earn more commission. This person will be the first one to sign their name up to say, I want those shifts. But then during those shifts would actually be slacking off. And then at the end of the shift, when they didn't make the targets and they were getting a telling off for wasting that shift when I could have given it to someone else, guess what they did? They blamed circumstance. Blame it on the world, blame it on the customer, blame it on me, blame it on the co-workers, blame it on everything else, never look inward, which is exploitative, deceitful, and bitter. and dishonest, right? So these are all things that they all come out of greed. That's what I'm trying to paint the picture to you, is all of these negative things, all of these negative attitudes, all are veining off greed. Greed is the main problem. If they can solve the greed, all of these things will get solved as well. But that's not your problem. At the moment, we're just having eyes to see, how do we spot the greedy people? How do we spot the greed in the person so that we can decide what to do? So what have we got so far? Failed health, obese, sickly, weary, possessive, using people as objects, and objects have no value, we can just take them. Exploiting people with false outrage when we're being accused of the things that we've done. I say we, they. See, I'm trying to be empathetic here. I'm trying to put myself in that position, even though it's difficult for me. And that's why I'm saying we. So if I was a greedy person with all these problems, I would be outraged at myself. I wouldn't be looking to blame the world. I wouldn't be saying my genetics are the reason I'm obese. I'd be saying the reason I'm obese is because I keep stealing everyone's food and then lying about going for 2-hour jogs and lying about not getting up at midnight and cleaning out the whole fridge, despite it belongs to other people. I'd be looking at myself for those, and I'd be openly admitting these things. But greedy people will not do that. They're exploitative, selfish and deceitful. They will lie, not because they're bad people. They're doing this as a, they're deceiving themselves, really. They're doing this to avoid having to look in their own eyes. And it makes them miserable. They're never happy, bitter. They will fall out with you. This is another thing. They will readily fall out with you, family members, boyfriends, girlfriends, everyone, apart from the mystical best friend. That's the person they'll never ever fall out with. They're more than happy to fall out with you if you bring up any of these accusations to them, greedy person, even if you approach it in the most polite, courteous way to try and help them out, because you recognise that this greed is an issue for them, it's causing them all these problems. If you dare approach them with it, they will blow up in your face, and then they will fall out with you so that you don't have the opportunity to discuss it further. It's their retreat, effectively. Disaffected, they have a poor work effort. They only work for obvious big rewards, and they do the minimum required to get the maximum reward. And the summary of greed is, these are self-serving people. Self-serving people. Their generosity is never true, although they will claim to be generous and hardworking and sincere people. It's fake. And the reason they have to fake it is because they are deceiving you, covering up their greed, because deep down they know it's sinful and they are ashamed. That's how you know someone's greedy, is when you approach them with these things, they will cover it up, blame you, run away, because they are ashamed of it. But they'll never admit to this. That's greed. So, please give me your comments now, obese people, that I have been rude to you. But this is all scripture. This is all 100% from this book here, the Holy Bible. Practical life advice from the apostles and Jesus, and actually from the Old Testament as well. So, keep in mind, greedy people are not necessarily bad people, but the person's greed is definitely bad because it's a sin, and the reason it's worth you knowing these is so that you can spot it on people, not be exploited, not be deceived, and not be provoked into a sinful reaction by that greedy person. You might be able to help them. That's really, if you're going to avoid them, maybe in future you'll be able to reapproach that person and help them solve their sin problem, if you know these things. So that's greed. And we move on. After greed, we're going to do gluttony. A lot of people confuse these two things. Gluttony is not the same as greed. Greed means my eyes are greedy. When I see something like a donut on the table or a pack of cigarettes on a park bench, I have to take it. It's mine. I can't leave anything down. Right? That's greed. Greed means I don't need it, but I can see it and I should have it because it's there. So there's no real need. It's just a desire coming from a greedy nature, right? That's greed. Gluttony means I can't stop once I've started. So a greedy person will take one donut and then run away. A glutton will eat all the donuts and sit there until they're finished. I shouldn't use donuts as an example. Look, donuts is just on my mind because I've got one over there for when I finish the video. So that's the reason I'm using donuts as an example. So let's go through it. Gluttony. Gluttonous people lack discipline. This is obvious. This is the most obvious thing about the gluttonous person. If you have discipline, you will just have one donut and then you will leave the rest for other people or another day. But if you're a gluttonous person, when you start eating one, you will feel like the pleasure of that one donut needs to continue until there's no donuts left on the tray. So you will not leave one for anyone else. And this means you will become kind of hedonistic. You know, the pleasures of the flesh will become your main driving force. So that's how it's different from greed. Greed is, because they are ashamed of it in here, they know it's bad and shameful, it's all hidden. They'll do one donut, run away, deny it. Eat something in the middle of the night, run away, deny it, right? That's greed. Gluttonous people, they're not ashamed of it at all. They don't care. They'll sit there with a big tray of donuts, scoffing the lot, or they'll smoke like 60 cigarettes one after the other, or they'll drink a whole bottle of vodka. Whatever it is that their fleshly desire, their vice is, they will proudly sit there and do it, and sometimes even boast about it. And they'll say, you know, I'm my own boss, or I'm the king of me, or, you know, it's up to me what I do, I'm an adult now. They'll always justify it rather than excuse it. And whereas the greedy person is ashamed and will hide it and deny it, this person will boast about it and openly do it. So that's gluttony. Lack of discipline, hedonistic, ruled by desires of the flesh, controlled by indulgences. What does it mean to be a glutton who is controlled by indulgences? First of all, we need to know what an indulgence is. Indulgence means, go on then. Just have it anyway. You know, that's an indulgence. An indulgence is something you don't really need. You don't really even want it. It's just there. So you're just like, okay, I'll have some of that because it's an option. So indulgences is a pleasure. You will know in your life, maybe you are eating a Sunday dinner and you have a very nice tasty dinner, and then someone says seconds and you think, yeah, okay, I'll have seconds. So that's an indulgence. It's not always a bad thing. But if you're controlled by that desire for indulgence, then it becomes a bad thing. So what that means is, if you eat as quickly as you can so that you can get to the seconds first, depriving everyone else of it, that's being controlled by your indulgence. You're not just taking or leaving it at that point, you're engineering a scenario where you get there first because you want it, you need it, it's yours. You take ownership of it, and that's you being controlled through your indulgences. Right, so you can see how gluttony and greed, certain amount of overlap with these people who are greedy and gluttonous, but they are distinctly separate things. So what have we got for gluttony so far? Lack of discipline, hedonistic, ruled by desires of the flesh, controlled by their indulgences, and a fear of loss. Like I was saying, when the seconds is there, they don't want you getting there first and eating the seconds. The seconds are theirs, possession. So they will eat quickly, scoff down the food, however gross this might sound and look, so that they can get to the seconds first, and then they will be extremely happy, big Cheshire grin, that they got to the seconds first, and then do the same with the seconds. You know, they won't consider that someone else might want them, and they will rush through, not enjoy the meal, so that they can get to the seconds. And the reason why this is really bad is because actually, if you are treating your indulgences in this way, you're actually not enjoying them, are you? Think about it. If I have to rush through my meal, chomp it down in a mere matter of seconds so that I can get to the second portion, then I've not enjoyed the first portion, have I? So I'm wasting the first portion to get to the second portion, just to deprive other people of it, and that is gluttony. Gluttons are always seeking self-pity and irresponsible, and will play the victim mode in order to get this. This is a weird kind of phenomenon that I've noticed with gluttonous people, and actually greedy people don't do this a lot of the time. Greedy people play the victim when they're cornered, but they won't outwardly boast about it. They won't use it, you know. It's a defense mechanism, not an attack vector for the greedy person. Whereas the gluttonous person, they are actually seeking pity. And the reason they're seeking pity is because in their head, if you pity them, you will reward them to make them feel better, and they can have more of the indulgence which they seek. Right? So that means, woe is me, poor me is the initial response. Then that's to attract you over. So they're trying to attract your attention. They're seeking drama and attention from you. Poor me, I've got this pain, or I've got a cold, or I've got a headache, or my dog died, or they'll use something to draw your attention. When they've got your attention, they will suggest to you that the way to cheer them up is to indulge them in the things that control them. You know, the food, the cigarettes, the alcohol, the pornography, whatever it is. They will try to get you to provide them with that. And this is irresponsible because they are enticing and provoking you to helping them with the sin. Rather than what the greedy person does is do it on their own and try to hide it, you know, to not try and involve other people in it. Gluttonous people don't care. They're more than happy to involve you in it if you can supply them those indulgences, and that makes them irresponsible. And actually, when this becomes habit, they will start to actively seek people, turn on the fake tears to get the pity, to get the indulgence, to have you work for them. They don't care how sinful it is either for them or for you. And it builds a selfish nature. Spoilt brat. You will 100% associate and relate to this if you know anyone who is gluttonous. So, people who are affected by the sin of gluttony tend to become spoiled brats and bullies. And this is something which does overlay with the earlier greed thing, because if you remember the greed that we went through, greedy people are exploitative, selfish, and deceitful. They'll fall out with you because you accuse them of something which they did. You know, they stole your food, or they took something off you to be greedy with, and then they lied about it. The gluttonous person will become a spoilt brat through constantly looking for pity, having other people provide them the indulgences which control them. And after a while, they think, you owe me. They expect that that's going to happen. If you don't give it to them, they become bratty and relentless in accusing you of letting them down. Apparently, it's your negligence. They deserve that thing from you. It's not like they just deserve to have the indulgence now. You need to be the one that gives it to them. It can't be them that gets it for themselves. It's you. It's on you to give them the indulgence. So you have to work, or give them money, or buy them something, or owe them something, or trade something away, or do them a favour, because they have become spoilt and bratty. And this leads into them becoming a bully. So if they're also greedy and a big fat heft, this actually turns them into a kind of intimidating, bullyish type of person. Very large, big, loud voice, very needy, dramatic person who is turning on the tears, exploiting you for the purposes of what? Being a person who is controlled through indulgences, a greedy, gluttonous person who doesn't care about others. So this is the root of a lot of people becoming very, very immature and leaning into dependence on other people, not being self-sufficient. So it's immaturity that it engenders. And that's what we're getting at here. Greed, gluttony, all the other sins, the reason that they're so bad is because they open the door to the other 28 sins, or however many they are. These are the intro points for sin to creep into your body and your life and take hold of your personality. Then you will become exploitative, selfish, lacking in discipline, rude, a bullying, intimidating type, and you'll become immature. And the more you lean into immaturity as a greedy, gluttonous person, the less likely it is that you will start to look inward and solve those problems. We know, whatever your problem is, whether you caused it or not, if you take responsibility for that problem, you will solve it. It's just logical, right? Proverbs actually does a good job of explaining this. If you have a problem, somebody else caused it, fair enough. It's not your, you didn't cause it. It's not your fault. But you're responsible for fixing it because it's your own life. If you say, well, they're responsible for fixing it because they caused it, and you sit and fold your arms and wait for them to come and solve it, honey, you'll be waiting a long old time. They might never do that. They might never solve it. So you'll have that problem forever, and you'll become immature, bratty, and selfish, waiting for them to solve the problem because you're putting the responsibility on someone else. And that is gluttony that leads to that. Greed also does, but gluttony to a larger extent is the vector for that sin to creep in. So, what have we got so far for gluttony? Lacks discipline, ruled by the flesh, controlled by indulgences, irresponsible, seeking pity, playing the victim in order to gain compliance for other people to supply. It's like narcissistic supply, but it's indulgent supply, if you like. Spoilt brat, behind the scenes bully, immature nature, and prone to dependency issues. Right, this leads into the last bullet point. A gluttonous person who is like stuffing their face with food, going back for seconds. Smoke until the end of the packet, then borrowing. Buying a large pack of sweets, and then another large pack of sweets, so that when this one's finished, we can immediately go on this one, or multi-packs. These are people who are going to become prone to dependence. Dependence is a big issue. It's a medical disease. Alcohol dependence, drug dependence, protein, food dependence. All these things are actually described as medical problems. So you can give yourself medical, physical problems through the spiritual sin of gluttony and also greed. And that means if you know someone who suffers these things and you are empathetic towards them too much, you will draw that sin into yourself. You'll empathise with it so much, you'll start to feel like it's your problem as much as it is theirs, and then you will start being greedy and gluttonous. So you have to be very mindful of this. Keep in mind what we're going through here is to safeguard you, to stop you from doing these things. Even if everyone you know does it and you're constantly helping them and you're empathising with them so that you can better understand them, if you know this in your head and you are faithful in these being sins, if you believe God when he tells you these things are sins, you shouldn't do them, then you will be protected from these when you're helping other people. And that's the main point that I'm trying to make here. Greed, gluttony, pride, envy, sloth, lust and wrath are all provocations for you. So until you've decided whether you're going to mark and avoid those people, or you're actually going to wade in with a Christian mission to try and help them, before you make that decision, you must know these off by heart, and you must know exactly these are what the Bible preaches. This is not like an art or a philosophy lecture where there's a lot of thinking to do. These are bullet points to revise and learn. These are what the Bible tells us. So, gluttony, we'll finish off. Gluttonous people are suspicious. They dislike the observant and the pure types of people because they see them as a threat to their fragile ego. And that's what we're going to finish up for with gluttony. So the summary of gluttony is it makes people suspicious of non-gluttonous people. It makes them suspicious of the pure, generous types of people because those are the people who will spot the gluttony on them. They are prone to addiction problems, and this will have an impact on their lifestyle and yours if you spend time with them. They will bring that addictive personality to you. Their dependence problems will be a problem for you if they're in your life. They will become immature and spoiled. And sometimes a behind-the-scenes bully because they need that thing, that indulgence, that food or that alcohol, those cigarettes or that weed. They need it. They absolutely need it because they're feeding an endless indulgence, a controlling spirit, which is not the Holy Spirit. They're controlled by their sin and they need to constantly feed that sin. And that means if you're there, they will try to get you to feed it as well. and this means no discipline. So they will become a burden on you. And that's gluttony. So, greed, gluttony, how long have we been? 35 minutes, we've been a long time. So we're going to end it there. That's greed and gluttony. Please keep in mind, if you know anyone who is greedy and gluttonous, you will usually be able to spot it on them. And I know I'm going to get criticised for saying this. He's fattest, he's attacking fat people. I'm not attacking fat people, I want to make that clear again. Not all fat people are greedy and gluttonous, but all greedy and gluttonous people will become fat, right? So make the distinction there. Some people do have general medical issues that cause them to become obese, or that they have bad hygiene or whatever else, and it isn't to do with greed and gluttony. But you will know after you know a person any amount of time through their attitude, their behaviours, and the way that they treat you in their life, whether this is a greedy and gluttonous person, and if it is, be wary that you don't allow them to provoke you into these sinful behaviours, because it will make your life worse, it will affect your health, and you cannot help them if you're just as bad, if you become just as bad. If you want to really be Christian and help these people, you need to have a armoured, you need to wear the armour of God effectively and be resistant to that sin. You need to block that sin out, have it flee from you. That's what we're doing here. So that's the end of this video. Greed, gluttony, revise on what we said. What you'll find is Proverbs, generally reading through Proverbs and also Psalms will give you a better understanding of these, but they're throughout the Bible. Once you know these things off by heart, you will become a better person when you're helping people who suffer these sins, and you'll become more resistant and stronger against these sins attacking you in your life. And that's the name of the game, brother or sister Christian. Self-improvement for the betterment of our brothers, serving our Lord to make the world better. And I hope that's what you go out and do. So that's the end of this video. God bless you all, hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you lovely people in the next one. Bye now. I'm off to go and eat my donut.